Before he was Eliah, the boy who would walk in divine footprints. He was simple. No one paid attention, a forgotten name in a forgotten town where even the wind seemed tired of returning. He lived in the shadow of a cracked chapel, not far from where the city dumped its waste and dreams. The cross atop the chapel leaned ever so slightly, as though it too had grown weary of holding up prayers that never seemed to reach heaven. Eliah had a mother who slept more than she spoke, and a father who left before his name could settle into memory. He had no room of his own, just a corner and a threadbare curtain, and he'd taught himself to dream without making noise. There were nights when hunger curled inside him like a serpent. He'd press his palms to his ribs and whisper, "You're still alive." That's enough. But even in all the dust, he had eyes that searched the sky. Not for escape, but for answers. He didn't know much about God. Only that people spoke his name when they were desperate or dying. Or both. Eliah didn't pray. Not out loud. But he wondered if God ever saw kids like him. Kids who kept quiet when others were loud. Kids who didn't ask for much, only enough. There was a time he tried to fit in, tried to walk like them, talk like them, fight like them. But there was always something off about Eliah. Something too soft, too still. It made others uncomfortable, and so he learned to build walls. Quiet ones, made of silence and sarcasm. Made of, "I don't care," and "whatever." But God knew better. Because when the city slept and shadows lengthened, Eliah would sometimes slip into that crooked chapel. Not to pray, just to sit, just to feel something. He'd sit beneath the broken stained glass window, and light would spill on him like fragmented fire. He'd close his eyes and whisper questions into the silence. Is there more than this? Am I allowed to want more? Will I always be this? He never expected an answer. But heaven listens differently than we do. What Eliah didn't know, what he couldn't know, is that transformation rarely comes in a blaze. Sometimes, it begins with a whisper. A cracked heart. A flicker of hunger, not for food, but for meaning. That's when the first footprint appeared. Not on the ground, but inside him. And though Eliah couldn't see it yet, he had just taken his first step. He was not perfect. But he was willing. And that is where every holy story begins. Some journeys don't begin with a map, but with a burden. Some sermons aren't spoken, but lived. The road stretched ahead, dusty and uncertain. Eliah's feet were sore, but it wasn't the walk that burdened him, it was the weight he carried inside. Questions with no answers. Regrets with no relief. He had heard stories of peace, of truth, of something more. But to him, they were just words, until he met him. The stranger appears, it wasn't dramatic. There was no thunder, no lightning. Just a quiet figure sitting beneath a fig tree, tracing the dirt with a twig. The stranger looked up as Eliah passed, eyes steady, kind, timeless. You look for what you already carry, the stranger said, as though he had been waiting. So begins a conversation, not filled with answers, but with truth. The stranger speaks not of rules or rewards, but of seeing. You see the world is broken, he says. But what if it's longing to be healed? For you. Eliah doesn't fully understand, but something shifts. After a long chat full of questions and uncertainties, the stranger blesses the journey ahead, not with promises, but with purpose. The river and the dream. Eliah sat by the river, watching the current move without effort. He had tried to do everything right. Prayed, helped, forgave. But the world didn't feel any softer. People still lied, stole from others. Doubts still lingered. His heart still slipped into anger. Lord, he whispered, fingers digging into the dirt, I'm trying. But walking in your footsteps feels like chasing the wind. Behind him, an old man's voice broke the silence. Do you think the wind tries to chase itself, or just goes where it's meant to? The old man sat beside him. Even Peter sank when he looked away from Jesus, but Jesus was God. I'm not. No, but you were made in his image. The footsteps aren't there to shame you. They're there to guide you. One at a time. Eliah looked down. Footprints lined the riverbank, some shallow, some deep. Some of us leave shallow marks, the old man said. But even the shallow ones are moving forward. He woke up, but the footprints remained. A dream, yet more than a dream. The wisdom of shallow marks. The old man stared ahead, firelight dancing in his eyes. The world teaches us to run, to conquer. But few teach us how to endure. That's where you'll find the ones who walk in his footsteps. Eliah nodded, thinking over his dream. The lesson settled deep. He then continued with his journey. In his journey, he met different people with valuable lessons that made him change the way he looked at things. The little things and the ones that seems difficult at first. The girl who sings in the village square. Eliah paused as a girl sang an old song. Her dress patched, her smile wide. She sang away sadness with a melody passed down by her mother. In her voice, he heard hope, the kind that blooms without wealth. Eliah had started noticing things that didn't touch him before, and he took each lesson with him moving forward. The woman who forgives. Eliah found himself outside a quiet house. A woman invited him to sit beside her. "My son stole from me. Twice. He came back last winter. I let him in. You forgave him?" I remembered who I was when I first held him. It helped me remember who I wanted to be now. There was no bitterness. Only ache and grace. Love is stronger than being right. Her words stayed with him longer than most sermons ever had. Eliah helped the old woman around the house, fetching water, chopping wood and so on. Then he continued with his journey. The man who feeds by a crooked cart, a man roasted maize. "You look like a traveler. Have you eaten? I don't have much to offer. I've been given more than I can carry. Sit." Others came, elderly, children, a quiet boy. He fed them all. "When I have enough, yes. When I don't, I still try. But what about tomorrow? Tomorrow's not mine yet. I give what I can today." If Jesus could break bread for thousands, I trust my little is enough. "Tomorrow is not mine yet," Eliah murmured as he continued with his journey. The girl who chose joy by the stream, a girl danced. "You walk like your heart is too heavy. Want to spin with me? I'm not sure I remember how. Just close your eyes. Pretend the sky is hugging you." Her parents were gone. Yet she smiled. Jesus cried too, didn't he? But he still made people smile. I want to be like that. Her joy was a defiant kind of faith. Again something shifted in Eliah. He took the lesson and moved on with his journey. The weight that softened. Eliah sat beneath the fig tree to reflect and hoping to see the stranger again. Stars whispered above. He thought of the woman who forgave. The man who fed the poor, the fatherless. The child who danced. And in each of them, a glimpse of the one he sought. They don't even know their teaching, no halos. No choirs. But holiness, undeniable. Maybe I've been searching for a throne, when all along, he's been walking beside us in dust and scars. The tree rustled. He listened, no longer chasing, but finally hearing the footsteps in the dust. We are not called to be perfect. We are called to be the willing ones, hands open, hearts humbled, feet ready. Because of the greatest legacy of the greatest man in history, is that he left a path that even the weakest of us can walk, if we dare to believe, and love. Love and eternal life. His name is Jesus Christ. Footprints in the Dust is a story for those who've reached the end of themselves, tired, forgotten, or running from what once made them strong. Like Prophet Elijah, it's in the silence, in the dust, in the gentlest whisper of God's presence, where true strength is born again. This is not about perfection, it's about pursuit. About walking where He has walked, even when your feet are cracked, and your heart is weary. About walking just like Elijah, even in our lowest moments, God's footprints are already there in the dust. And He still calls us to rise.